1,343, 1,344, 1,345, 1,300. Hey everybody, Brandon back with some more Payne-ted Plastic. Welcome to episode 3 again. That's right, yeah, the actual episode 3 this time. This episode we're going to do some priming, we're going to do some pre-shading, and hopefully get some base colors laid down. That's really all I plan on doing for this episode, so it'll be a lot of time at the airbrush booth. So let me get everything set up and we will jump right into the priming. We'll do the priming and the pre-shading kind of all together because it's basically the same thing. Then we'll come back and talk about what the base colors are going to be. I've sort of got a plan. May change, you know, I change my mind constantly. So, but for right now, let's head over to the booth and do a little priming. Be right back. Alright everybody, over at the paint booth. You know, I thought for this one I'd do it a little bit differently. You know, normally I speed everything up, do a couple of pieces, and I sort of feel like I've been rushing it. So for this one, it's all real time, just so, you know, you get the full effect of how light the coats are. As always, got our trusty gray Stynylrez primer. I will be using some black primer for a few pieces, but most of it's going to be gray. Going to be blowing it through the airbrush neat, you know, no thinners, nothing like that. And as you can see, I only put a little bit in the pot. The main reason for that is I don't want it drying inside the cup, you know, while I'm spraying. So yeah, blowing it through at about 22 psi. And yeah, gonna go in with a really light coat. It's called a key coat, right? You're just getting a little bit of paint on the surface, let that dry, and then your next coat will have something to stick to. Just kind of give it a little something to bite onto. But yeah, really light, and of course painting the inside of the piece. The reason I'm doing the inside there is, you know, some of the weathering things that we do later can affect the plastic. Some of the thinners and stuff can affect the plastic, so I want to make sure all of the bare plastic is covered. Like I said, you're never going to see the inside of these pieces, but still, I want them protected. Now here I'll go back in with a little bit lighter coat. You can see that it's covering a little more completely there. Now I'm just going back over, making sure there's no light spots, making sure everything's good and covered. Just kind of hitting it with air, making sure it's completely covered. So. That's pretty much the process. I tell you what, let's jump over to some pre-shading, and I'll show you how all that works. It's a fun process. It adds a whole lot to your model. So, all right, here we go with some pre-shading. So, what I like to use for pre-shading is the Tamiya Rubber Black. It's XF85. It's a nice flat black. And I just, you know, I always decant everything in little droppers. Makes it easier. So, the pressure on my airbrush on this has been bumped down because the paint is thin. I thin the paint about 50-50 with thinner, just so it's you know, nice thin paint, blows through easily. So my pressure's set at about 18, something like that. And same thing, I just put a little bit in the cup. You know, I don't want it drying in the cup, so. The one thing you do have to do for pre-shading, or that I like to do, is remove your crown cap. You can get a much finer line. Now be careful, because that needle is incredibly sharp. It will stab you straight to the bone. But with that crown cap off, you can get some really, really nice tight lines. You can see here I'm just doing some really, really fine lines, and that's what you want, because you're basically going all around the piece, all around the edges. Here's the leg armor we did in the first episode, or in the first bit there, and this is pre-shading, just going around the edges, adding some shading, some variation. Doesn't have to be neat, doesn't have to be, I mean, really the sloppier the better, because all that variation is going to come through in your paint. So, you know, as you can see, I'm taking my time, but I'm not exactly being careful, right? Just following the edges, pretty much outlining the entire piece, right? That's basically all pre-shading is. Now when we do the base coat, all of those tones will show up darker. You know, you'll still have the same color, but it'll be a few shades darker, because that black is underneath. And it, like I said before, it really adds a lot to your paint job. I love doing pre-shading. It's a bit time consuming, because you have to do this across, you know, every part basically. But it's well worth it. Like I said, the end product, you get so much more dimension to your paint. It's not just a solid flat color. You know, you get a lot of dimension. You know, I like it. I think it's well worth the time. So that's pre-shading, and like I said, this is all real time, guys. I haven't sped this up one bit. All right, let's head back over to the bench, and we'll talk about the base colors that I'm thinking about. Okay, got these parts sort of separated out strategically. These are just a couple of the trees. There's a ton more parts. But I got them separated out because some of the parts are going to get light brown, right? It's actually desert yellow, but it looks more kind of beige to me. It's XF59 Tamiya Desert Yellow, right? Hope I'm showing that to you. But yeah, so those parts are going to get that. The other parts are going to get a darker brown, and it's actually red brown. XF64, right? And that's just going to be kind of an accent, right? It's certain parts, you know, just to sort of offset the brown. So that's my plan for the base colors, the two primary base colors. One thing I did when I was pre-shading is there were some parts that I wanted black, right? So I just sprayed those completely black with the same rubber black that I used for the pre-shading, right? Same color. Just did a few of those parts because I wanted those to be black. And then the only other thing is I kind of want to throw some red in, just for a splash of color here and there. I'm thinking maybe the shoulder pauldron, or I don't know, just something to get a little, you know, flash of color on the kit. Let's head back over to the booth and we'll start spraying the light brown, and then we'll finish up, you know, the few pieces. There's only a handful of pieces that are going to be the dark brown, so the majority is going to be this. But yeah, let's head over there and start spraying these colors. Be right back. All right, everybody, over at the booth, let's spray some base color. Now the setup is going to be exactly the same for both of these colors, so yeah, gonna start out with the XF64. I know I said I was gonna do the light first, but yeah, I decided to go out of order. Yeah, both of these paints, the dark brown and the light, are both thinned about 50-50. Pressure set at about 20, give or take. 19, 20, something like that. Yeah, we'll jump right in with this is one of the side skirts. And kind of what I do when I'm base coating over a pre-shade is I kind of focus on the spaces between the shading. So I focus on the center of the panels and then kind of feather it out to the edges. It's not a difficult technique, but it does take a little bit of practice not to just slap the paint on and cover everything up, right? For the inside panels, that's where I just slap the paint on. You're never going to see that, so yeah. But then just going back and, like I said, kind of concentrating on the center of that panel and working out towards the shade. Now I did notice, watching the video back, the pre-shading doesn't really show up. I guess all the lights and all that stuff, it doesn't show up quite as well in the video. It's much more predominant in real life. But yeah, that's kind of my technique for doing the pre-shading. Just focus on the center of the panel and feather out to the edge. Everything's exactly the same for the Desert Yellow, the XF59. So here we go with a leg armor, and same thing, focus on the center of the panel, kind of fill in around the pre-shading to start with, and then I'll slowly just start blending that out into the shade. Again, on the inside, I just go to town, just fill it in with color. Here I'm actually bumping my pressure up just a little bit. I don't think I thin the yellow quite as much as the brown, so it's a little bit thicker. So I think I bumped my pressure up here to about 21, 20, 21, 22, somewhere in there. Same as before, just kind of working in the center, feathering it out. And again, I don't know if it's the lights or the camera or what, but the pre-shading kind of disappears on camera. Just like with the Red Brown, the pre-shading isn't quite as obvious as it is in real life. It kind of disappears. There we go. Let's head back over to the bench and see what's going to happen next. Be right back. All right, everybody. That's the base coats pretty well finished. The pre-shading, like I said, I don't know if it's going to show up on the video. You can see a little bit there, right? Just very subtle, right? In real life, it's a little bit more pronounced. Like I said in the video, I don't know if it's the lights or the camera, but something is making that kind of disappear. Especially on these darker colors, you can barely see it at all. But yeah, so that's the two kind of base colors for the armor. Now I say for the armor because there are a few things that did not get base coated. Oh, and incidentally, I also have a few pieces that I just sprayed black. There's the pauldron that we made, right? Just sprayed that black. I've got some different ideas for these things, a couple of other little bits and bobs. But there's a few things that did not get base coated. One is the inner frame parts. Ordinarily, I would paint that, but the color I chose, it's almost exactly the same color as the plastic. So What I plan on doing is just kind of picking out details on the plastic itself. Now I know I've said 100 times, always prime, and you should. You should always prime your models. But for this inner frame, you know, for the most part, it's never going to get touched, right? It's going to be underneath the armor. Um, I think it'll be okay, right? It's stuff like the joints and just little bits that kind of peek through the armor, right? So it's not going to be stuff that's going to be handled very often. We're actually going to save that for the next episode. We'll dive into the inner frame and get some of the details picked out there. The other thing that did not get primed and base coated are the weapons. And that's just because I want to do an episode just for the weapons. I mean, they're going to be so much fun to paint up and detail, and so yeah, we'll do that in another episode as well. So as always, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you had fun. I had fun. Stay tuned for episode 4. We will get into uh, the inner frame parts, and we'll get all of that stuff painted up and detailed, and yeah, should be a lot of fun. So until then, bye.